The fact that you signed up for HEX Ed tells me you're not somebody who wants to stay at this level. Hi guys.
In business, there is a perception that I think you need to be a bit of a dickhead, and hopefully I can say that and they don't beat this out. Should I start again? I have no idea what I'm saying.
It's about using the resources you have to make the world a better place.
It's going to sound very, very, very weird.
Oh, so cringe.
We're going to meet so many interesting people, and I just can't wait. And one of the very interesting people we are going to meet today is Brendan Leeds. Hi, Brendan. Round of applause.
Hey, round of applause for you. Hey, Jay, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to CEOnly Fans. For those who might not know me or who are new here, my name is Jeanette Cheah. I am the CEO and co-founder of HEX. We're an education technology company based here in Melbourne. I'm dialing in from Wurundjeri land, and we work with students and educators all around the world to increase the exponential intelligence of the global workforce. And I am joined by my good friend of, we don't even know how many years, 20 plus years, Brendan?
Be close to that, yeah.
Who is the CEO and co-founder of hospitality tech startup Clipboard. Do you want to give us the elevator pitch, the tweet version?
Yeah, sure thing. We are a technology startup business that plays in the hospitality space globally. And our whole ethos is to provide pathways to opportunities for all industry stakeholders.
Fantastic. And I mean, this is something you and I know quite a bit about because, as we said in the promos, when we were, early 20s, maybe early 20s?
Yeah, early 20s, yeah.
Making cocktails and making coffee and serving brunch down in Glen Waverley. And you loved hospitality so much that you stuck around.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was my, I think it was my second job where we worked together, and where I also met my now wife as well. I just fell in love with the whole people aspect of hospitality. Like I love my food, my wine, cocktails, love all that, but just the different and variety of people that you meet in that industry, the opportunities to travel and work for so many great people. And here I am, after 20 years of being in the industry, still in it, but on the other side in a tech space. And that's what's so fascinating about it. There are so many pathways and so many different levels that you can enter the industry and grow within the industry. So yeah, I'm a massive fan, passionate about it. And I love seeing the evolution of it.
I think that's one of the things that when you started Clipboard really resonated with me, because many people look at hospitality as like this transitory thing that you just do for a couple of years while you're getting through school, or maybe just like, part-time or casual. But you really believe that there's a need for professionalizing this industry and really connecting everyone together. So that was part of the Clipboard ethos. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, you use the word professionalizing or legitimizing, we like to call it. And for my personal journey, my whole family's in media and marketing and advertising. And I sat around the dinner table all my life hearing about advertising and rate cards and clients. And I've probably got a lot of knowledge in that space. And that was going to be my pathway until I fell in love with hospitality. And for 10 years of my life, I was always questioned, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a real job? And that comment really motivated me to be like, this is my job. This is my career. It may not have the glitz and glamour as back then, 10, 15 years ago, other industries, but it has given me so much opportunity. And like I mentioned, to meet new people, to travel, at the age of 22, I was running venues. I lived overseas and set up 2 venues over there. I had my own venue. I had staff of 150. So, it was a legitimate career. And that was the romantic version or romantic vision for Clipboard, is that we want to create a space or a company that allows its stakeholders, its individuals, to have a clear pathway to having a successful career or an identifiable career in hospitality. If you look at the industries that are out, the companies that are out there now, it's not just the glitz and glamour ones. It's the small entrepreneur who may start off as a barista, but then ends up working for developing a new tech company that is Mr. Young, and that's hospitality space. So it's more than just the hands-on hard labor. All the negative publicity you hear about. There's so much more to it that needs to be exposed, that needs to be showcased, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, it's such a rich and diverse industry. And I mean, I think that my very first job was working at Hungry Jack's, serving drive-through and all that kind of stuff. And you do learn all sorts of skills when you're in those roles. And I'd love to hear if anyone's dialed in, if you had hospitality jobs in the past or currently. Would love to hear what they were and what you've been up to.
It's like the McDonald's, right? McDonald's training stuff. Like every time I hear someone, when you recruit, if they've worked at McDonald's, they're in. It's just amazing, because of the training they provided. So it does have a lot of different tentacles to actually go into other spaces.
That's exactly. I was going to ask you this exactly because you just mentioned your pathway of running your own venues, opening businesses overseas, leading 150 people like in your mid-20s, and I'm just curious about like what kind of transferable skills did you grab from all of that to bring to your career now?
I think I mentioned at the start, the biggest thing is people. And I think I developed early on, or learned very early on, that you can't do everything yourself. You don't have all the answers. You don't have all the skill sets. So you really need to surround yourself with people who are going to, embrace your vision, embrace your values, but can add to that as well. So I worked really hard on developing my leadership ability, my leadership skills, and culture. But that's what I really focused on. That's what I loved. I loved the mechanics of that, and seeing the best come out of my team or my business partners or my colleagues. And today, that I think whether you're running a small cafe, a startup like we do, or one of the largest companies in the world, it's all about your people and how you invest in them. And that was my biggest transferable skill. I think I brought to this startup having a vision and having a great understanding of your vision and understanding of yourself and what you are able to achieve. And then getting people to buy into it. And that's probably been the biggest learnings I've had over the last 20 years.
I love that a lot. And, I remember when early days of Clipboard, my understanding of it, and it's probably changed from now, was that you were bringing together, it's almost like the LinkedIn of hospitality, right? But I think you mentioned your vision and purpose, and I think you really hit your stride when Clipboard started to lean into this well-being space for the people working in the industry. And I know that's one of your big passions around wellness and mental health. Can you tell me more about that and how it kind of bubbled to the surface as something that you really wanted to bring into the business?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's got a bit of personal story for myself on two fronts now. So just before my son was born in 2018, I was in a pretty bad space. And I won't go into much detail about that, but hospitality, it is long hours, it is hard work, it's all those things that you hear about. And I found myself, where do I turn? Where do I go to? And I was lucky enough to have a support system. I had a life coach, which I invested in early on. But what I realized was there's so much information out there, and there's so much great stuff out there, but how is it streamlined for people within our industry? So when we launched Clipboard, yes, we wanted to have this great startup, we wanted to have this great success, but the passion behind it was, can we create pathways in wellbeing? And what does wellbeing mean to hospitality? And as a business owner, one of the biggest challenges is finding quality staff, but then retaining quality staff. And over the years, working in the space and working with different clients, it's all about the different generations that are coming through and what's important to them. And mental well-being is huge. Even before the pandemic, it was something that really plagued this industry. And so we wanted to have a real purpose behind it. We commissioned one of the first white papers in this industry late last year. We work with clinical psychologists. We work with resilience coaches who are not necessarily in hospitality, but the same tools can be transferred to what our members are going through. So it came from a personal place for me. And I wanted to make sure that, Clipboard is myself and my co-founder, and we wanted to bring our journey, our story through the launch of the company.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, personal snippet with us as well, because I think it is something that, we often don't talk about when we are founders, when we're CEOs, when you're working in any kind of job, really, your mental health is so important. And I think it's such an interesting way to position the business values, but then also to kind of find opportunity there to support your community. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think, it's very inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty open about it too. Like I've written a blog post about it when we first launched, and my son now is autistic and has ADHD, and that presents new challenges. But also, I embrace it so much because it teaches me new things. And then from what I see with my son and what he's going through, how can we apply that to the workforce? Because I'm sure I think it's 1 in 10 now people have ADHD. I'm sure hospitality owners out there are doing similar things with their staff, and your staff are your lifeline. Your team is your lifeline, your blood. The biggest asset. And I know how hard it is to implement and find tools to create that culture because you're so heavily focused on operations. You're so heavily focused on getting people through the door, and it can, and without anyone's fault, it can sort of slip to the sides. And for hospitality, I think which before the pandemic was the second largest growth industry in Australia, employed over 1 million people. And as you mentioned before, that transitional perception, it needs to be in the forefront, whether it be from advocacies or bodies or government. It's something that we need to invest in. And I think if we can play a small part in that, and there's some great people out there in this space doing amazing things, we're all better for it.
Fantastic. I do want to call out Carmen as well in the comments, mentioning that it's music to her ears hearing that you've actually, talked about real careers with legit pathways in this space. So thanks, Carmen, for the comment. And definitely would love to hear from you listening. So jump in and say hi if you're there. In terms of
just to touch, Jeanette, just to touch on the Carmen's comment. That's funny how you mentioned that. It's something that I think I read an article from a CEO from Australian Tourism, and the whole quote was, how do we get the younger generation involved in hospitality and tourism? And it's always a big talk. And I think the celebration of the industry, celebrating stories like your Me and Yous, your Mr. Youngs in the tech space, like your even just your smaller venues that are opening up, just the more we celebrate and push on about how this industry is a great career path, rather than focus on the negative aspect, you're going to start seeing that grassroots come through. So Carmen, just to touch on it, it's awesome that, it's something that does need to be legitimized.
Absolutely should be. I want to call out that a comment you made just before, your team is your lifeline, and I think that's such a really, it's true no matter whether you're in a cafe or whether you're in a startup. And can you tell us a little bit about how you think about putting your team together as a CEO? How do you start to structure those pathways and the culture in your team? Big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. And look, we're a small team and a growing team. When you first start, it was myself and my co-founder, Tipu Sultan, and you do everything. You've got so many hats on, and you're looking to capital raise, you're looking to get off the ground, you're building the tech side, you're dealing with all these different stakeholders, you've got shareholders and directors coming at you. And for me, we sat down and looked really hard at what priorities we need to focus on that we could not do anymore. We're launching, as you mentioned before, and thank you for the compliment, LinkedIn for hospitality. It's about being a voice. So when we're building our team, we need to really find people that believed in our vision. That was number one. So the people we hired, we spoke to, this is our vision. This is our journey. This is where we come from. Tell us about your story. And we found synergies in their story and our own. And that's where we got our first major hire from our lead designer, who was a contractor to us at the beginning, but she bought into what our vision was. And so we made sure that we had really clear opportunities, pathways, strategies, and like I said, the accountabilities, and knowing that we wanted them to really enhance our vision, enhance our strategies. Not so much, hey, this is what we're doing, just fit in now and start working. So it was really key for us to find people who had similar value system to us, similar vision to us, bought into our vision. And then when they came up part of the team, we now got a team of 6. It was all about nurturing. It's all about providing the right culture. It's all about being able to understand and listen and accept and really know how we can get the most out of them. And once we have that data, that information, it makes my job a lot easier because we're able to make sure that their pathway is aligned with our pathway.
Oh, that's really, really well said. And, I think it sounds like it's interesting to hear how reliant you are on sort of like data and insights, not just for the white paper for the industry, but also in your internal team. We do a little mini pulse check survey with our team to see how they're doing, and it really does help make policies, make decisions. They can start telling me if they want a 4-day work week, which they keep hinting about. But anyway,
Do it. Do it.
I want to say hi to Chris and Diane as well in the chat. Thanks for the questions. Great, and somewhat you got a fan. I think Chris has heard you talk before, so that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Nice.
Chris was at the see, my memory's gone now.
The City of Melbourne event.
Yeah, City of Melbourne. That's right. Yes.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris, for joining us again. It's great to see you as part of the HEX community. And a nice question for you as well from, I think it's Dayan, but it could be Dejan, about where you see Clipboard going in 5 years' time. Would you like to share a bit about that 5-year vision? Is that even possible for a lot of startups?
I think you get asked this question a lot, and I have been asked a lot, and Dejan, and I try not to look that far ahead. I sort of work on 90 days at the moment. So everyone develops their 12-month, their 3-year, their 5-year plan. For us, it's about making a real impact over the next 5 years in this industry globally. There's the same challenges that are faced here in Australia are faced all over the world. And if we can play our part in, like I said before, legitimizing this industry, showcasing it, celebrating, being a voice for it, and using, technology to do that, I see ourselves obviously being in, a global company that is able to provide these pathways without any geographical boundaries. So we want to be able to be a seamless, I suppose, a seamless ecosystem that you come to Clipboard. What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to go? What's your next career pathway? What's your next business pathway? And how can we facilitate that? That's what we want to be. And the more and more we're able to celebrate, to showcase, to be an advocate for it, to focus on things like well-being, to focus things on talent solutions, to focus on celebrating the individuals and stakeholders, I feel that's where we see this company going. And I know I've made a pact when I hear my colleagues or my fellow parents saying, hey, you should get into hospitality. It's a great career pathway, not being told, hey, when are you going to get a real job? So that's our purpose. That's our vision, because it is a great industry, as you started out in that as well. And I think it has so much potential to open up doors into different avenues. And that's what I love about you guys, what you guys do. So great question, but trying to get too far ahead, but if I can get there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like thinking in seasons, I think is a little bit how I go. Like I'm a quarter by quarter kind of girl, but I think and Melanie Perkins from Canva spoke at an event last year, and she kind of talked about you need to be able to visualize the 10-year, like what's your industry going to be in 10 years, what could happen, and then bring it all the way back to what are our first couple of steps, because you might not feel like you're making heaps of progress towards that big vision, but if you just can kind of like stack it up, there's no such thing as an overnight success. It's always like a 5 or 10-year overnight success, right? So you got to keep grinding a little bit to get to that big vision.
I love that. I love that word grinding. If anyone out there who's is in startup world or is an entrepreneur and wants that word grind, you'll hear a lot. But one thing I love about you guys, Jeanette, and you especially, is you celebrate the little things. And you mentioned before, sometimes you forget because you might have this grand picture, this grand pathway in front of you, and you got pressures from co-founders and stakeholders and directors and shareholders and all that. You've got to celebrate those little wins. And I think it's important it reminds you that you're on a journey. It's not a sprint, it's a journey. And really absorb all those the feedback that you get, whether it be constructive or great, but just celebrate it and take a step back and reflect on it. Like one thing I do every week is I reflect weekly. Used to do daily, but became too much. But I reflect weekly on did I achieve what I wanted to achieve this week? And there could be something as similar as spend 1 hour of quality time with one of my staff members, something as simple as that. And that's a win, So I think, you guys do that really well. And obviously it generates results for you. So
it also generates, I guess, market signals from the perspective of if you're going out to like raise investment, people keep seeing you. I heard this great saying that investors would like to see lines, not dots. So if you can kind of show them the line that just keeps like tracking rather than coming out of nowhere and being like, hey, give me some money, that actually be a bit more. I think every signal helps, right? I think. Now we've got another question from Sai in chat. So thanks, Sai. How are you? And this is a quite specific around IT. So what are the Clipboard IT landscape looks like? Do you have industry insights for IT for hospitality?
Great question. I wish I had my co-founder here now. He'd be the one that. So for us, industry insights that you can work with IT requirements and build. Yeah, great question. Look, for us, our whole IT landscape was around. Look, we're a web-based platform, mobile-friendly platform. That's how we wanted to build it. We didn't go straight into building a mobile app. We wanted to make sure that we had a presence that was able to be scalable. It's platform-based, so it can go global. We made sure that we spent a year of R&D on the tech space, on the tech landscape and the tech scope. So we didn't rush to market. We first wanted to make sure that what our vision was came to light. We employed consultants. We got other outsides involved. And then we went and found, I suppose our model was a hybrid model. Our CTO then went off and found developers overseas. We launched the first prototype. Then the whole next year was about market uptake and how do we get real market data. And data is so key to our business, because the more we understand our users, the more we understand what their ambitions are, where they want to go, the more value we can add. So from a hospitality perspective, anyone who's in that space, technology is your friend. It is something that is going to give you insights. It's going to be something that's going to help you forecast, project. It's going to give you more understanding. And I think, I make a time, at least once to twice a week for about 2 hours a week. I'll sit down and I'll do my own research on what's the next trends, what's the next data mapping, and how that works. So our model's pretty simple. It's all about profiling and data mapping, and then data matching as well.
Excellent. And I can imagine your co-founder Tipu will be sitting watching this going like, man, I really want to connect with Sai so I can have a chat about all the tech. So
yeah, Sai, reach out to us, Sai, and I'll get you in front of Tipu and he'll speak your language. Right. He's the one, he's the guru in that space.
And that's it. You need that complementary skill set, right? I actually wanted to pick up a little bit on that research piece, and this is just a little personal story. I promise it'll be quick. But when I was 19, I was working at an Italian restaurant in Glen Waverley before we worked together at Coco Lounge. And I remember they asked me if I wanted to help with some market research. Like the son of the owner was doing IT and he asked me to do some market research. I walked around to about 50 or 60 restaurants down Flinders Lane and all around the city of Melbourne, asking them about how they take payments and their credit cards and, how they go about their ordering systems. And then I realized a little while later that actually they use that insight to create this business called Automate, which is now actually in a lot of restaurants. And it's actually the digital ordering system that you see. So I just kind of had that reflection of like being 19, didn't really know what I was doing, but actually was doing like market research for a tech startup at the time. So who knew?
And now look at Automate. Automate's grown to be one of the largest point of sale systems, and now they've got Hungry's partly they're branched onto that. So it's just back then, even then, and how accessible now data is to everybody. There's so many great platforms out there. There's so many different ones launching every month. So for hospitality, I feel we're a bit behind still. I feel that the industry in Australia is still behind in uptake with technology, and we've found that with our own company. But we're in that sort of transitional period now. We've got young entrepreneurs who are opening venues coming through, or general managers, versus the establishments who were there for so long, and it's always worked for them. And it's just crossing that bridge now. So it's a really exciting time to be doing tech and in hospitality.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. Hospitality, technology is your friend, not your enemy. Now, Chris, great question. This is tending more towards the business side of things, which is more in your lane, I think, Bowden. Chris was asking, has there been a shift in what investors are wanting to see during capital raise and metrics right now, like in 2023 versus the frothy times of 2021 when there was lots of dry powder, lots of capital, and people were like riding high on these great valuations. So what are you seeing? And then I'd love to share some of my thoughts as well.
Yeah, great question, Chris. Actually, I had this conversation with a team member the other day, and yeah, you're right, Jeanette. 2 years ago, or 2021, it was a great time to be seeking capital, and even now, the market has changed a lot. I think the valuations that were being given or accepted 12 to 18 months ago is not the same. There are deals to be done. We're currently going through our next round of funding, and it's been probably more of a challenge this time around than it was previously. With especially to Australian investors, I think the revenue part for what we're going for is a big question. We only launched our commercial model late last year, really, or a little over 10 months ago. And for us, that's always the big question. The first question I get asked is, we love the story, we love the journey, we love your traction, because we spend really any money on marketing. We've got close to 80,000 members now, 9,000 businesses.
Wow.
And that's all great. But when it comes down to the commercials and what's your valuation, my advice would be very clear on that. Be very clear of what your financial model looks like. Even if you're not generating revenue, just have a clear, simple, make sure it's simple for them to understand, especially if they understand your industry. Hospitality is not if I say I'm a hospitality company, I see the faces, the frowns, hospitality, that you can see their head going, small margins, small coffees, yeah, okay, coffees and that. When I say I'm a tech business, which is what we are, it changes a bit. So my advice would be, get your financial model, get help on that side if you can, if you need to. Be very clear about your vision, your story, and in the end, just be yourself too. Like investors, if I find and want to invest in you, and whether it be a high net worth or it be a VC, it's about having a clear vision, a great story to tell. What problem are you solving? Of course, all the ones you've probably seen before, Chris. But yeah, just be very clear on your financials would be my advice right now. Love to hear what you're going through, Jeanette, because obviously.
Yeah, well, not only are we've kicked off our next raise, which is what I'm calling a bridge to Series A or a pre-Series A, because we can just make up words, right? I'm just kidding. But I also the VC Catalyst course at Wade Institute, so learning what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And there's a couple of things, a couple of insights I've picked up, and one is that investors are aware that they are not immune to, I guess, market whiplash, right? They know that the story that they're putting into the market now is a little different to what it was a while back. And so I think it's just about loving the scenario that you're in right now. So as founders, as investors, like understanding that, you have to almost put on your wartime CEO hat. Like this is wartime. Like we got to make different decisions. And as a result, they're looking for evidence that you are a cautious, controlled, disciplined founder. You understand that what a dollar in does to your business versus just, and they definitely don't want to be funding businesses to just stay alive. Like they want to know that you're ready for growth. Because at the end of the day, like down markets are a really great place to like fund good companies at a possibly lower valuation. So there are deals to be had from an investor perspective. And so raising right now, I guess positioning ourselves as a great company that has path to profitability, which is true, and knowing sort of what every dollar into the business will actually spit out at the other end. That's been really important. So yeah, double down on those metrics, but it's interesting times. I'll keep you posted. Hopefully, in OnlyFans, also your OnlyFans, I can share some exciting news. But
likewise, hopefully we can do the same because but it's something that. I know, since at a young age, I've always believed in that you will find, if you're looking for capital, right, you'll find it. If you believe in 100% in what you're doing, and you know that it has legs, and it knows that it's not just a wishful thinking or just an idea anymore. You've got runs on the boards, or you've got the right people behind you. And that was what we did with our board and our show. We felt we got the right people behind us. We had that approach of being whatever dollar comes in, where's it going? How's it going to? How is every investment we make, from a finance to a time to a resource to even from an EDM that we send out, what is going to be our return on that, and what are we going to be providing? And that's really key for us. And yeah, there have been times where we're like, I won't lie, how are we going to pay staff this week, or how are we going to do this next week, or how am I going to pay? But here we are, especially during COVID. COVID was for hospitality.
Yeah.
Pillaged Clipboard at the beginning. We're just about to launch our new model, but we're still here today. And you find ways. You find ways if you believe in what you're doing and you know it's got that validation.
there's a tenacity. Ooh, that was loud. There's tenacity, and then there's like execution. I think that's kind of the two things that I always
Yes.
pour and pride myself on. Now, I don't want to keep you away from your lunch and from your amazing business for too much longer, Brendan. I'm going to ask you, what would you have told yourself back when we were making lattes in Glen Waverley at Cocoa Lounge? If you could go back and order a coffee from your younger self, what advice would you give him?
Oh, there's so many things.
First of all, you would say that blonde girl over there actually does like you, so ask her out faster.
Yes, ask her out. Yes, I did that. Yes.
She's my your wonderful wife.
Yes. I probably would have learned to say, this might sound funny, but I was a yes man back then. I said yes to everything. And I read an interesting article about a couple of months ago, and the whole focus was learning to say no to opportunities that aren't right for you. So learning that not to capture every opportunity, not to say yes to everything, because what it did for me, it burnt me out. I end up prioritizing others, their wants, their needs, because I just wanted to, show that I could do it. And when you're young, you're like, yeah, who wants to stay work late? I'll put my hands up. And that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could have said that sometimes it's okay to say no, to pass on that opportunity or to pass on that investor who might be not worth what you said. So I would give that advice that be very clear on what you want to achieve. And it's hard at 20 to know that. Travel as much as possible. Get out there, see the world, embrace diversity, embrace change. And it's okay sometimes to say no, if it means putting yourself in a position where you're just there to please others. So that would probably that sounds probably a bit too professional, but yeah, the fun part, travel.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice, and I can see Chris on YouTube is feeling attacked by that, because I think that's nature of being innovative and being a founder and always wanting to say yes to opportunities. But we need to know what to focus on in order to, as we said, time in, results out, dollars in, results out. So great advice for young Brendan back there. And I just want to say, just on a personal note, like, I'm so proud of you. Like, every time I see what you and Tia do, like, even just this conversation, the way you think about your team, the way you think about your industry and the data and all that kind of stuff, your leadership, it's just really lovely to see.
You're an inspiration, Jeanette. Like I said, we've known each other for 20 years, and I love seeing what you've done professionally, personally. I'm lucky to be on that journey with you and the HEX team. You guys at HEX, Chris, we've had a few nice conversations and meetings and stuff. It's a great, I love that, 20 years ago we were making lattes and cocktails, and here we are on a Friday in the late May having a chat about where we are. And it's that connection, that ability to have that, your peers and see what they're doing and inspire you, someone that's at your level, similar level, or growing fast or same age and come through same journeys. That's what inspiration is to me. I look around to those who are doing great things, and are just there with a real purpose. So you should be applauded, and your team should be applauded, because what you've created at HEX is fantastic, and we're just lucky to be, involved in a small way. And I love seeing what you guys are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think, for anyone who's listening and watching, I just want to say thank you all for your time and for hanging out with us on CEOnly Fans. I think you got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of how yet another CEO's brain works, and some of the stories that's made him who he is today. So, Ranjanish, I agree. Ranjanish, great advice from Brendan there. And
anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to have chats, coffees, Zooms, anything I can do, share more of our story. We're all in this together in the startup world, and I think same with hospitality. We're all about unification, uniting each other, and what's greater for everybody or the mass is what's going to help each individual. So if anyone needs anything, just reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or come through Clipboard. Happy to chat.
Love that generosity, B. Thank you so much. And yeah, everyone else, feel free to get back to your lunch breaks, get some fresh air, and hope you have had a wonderful time with CE Only Fans with HEX and Clipboard. And yeah, that's us out. Stay excellent.
Thank you very much.
What excites me about the future is that there's a lot of technologies that currently only a small percentage of the world can access.
I think we're only at the beginning of a revolution in computing power.
The future can be what you want to make it if you can get access to the information. People now starting to learn orbital mechanics in their bedrooms late at night for fun.
I'm really excited to see what happens when the entire population can start to access these technologies.
The idea of communities and being able to exist in those communities, work in those communities, and interact with people in those communities.
For me, the future is all about being more accessible to people with all different backgrounds.
It excites me to welcome a fresh mindset and new perspective.
The real trick now is going to be making sure that everyone gets equal access to those informations and those opportunities.